Hello, everyone. Welcome once again to #SoccerChat. Can you use hashtags on podcasts? I don't know. My name is Sean Soderling, back, of course, with Nick Rizzo. Hopefully, you enjoyed our preview last week. Just a short little teaser of what you'll get here. Big show lined up today. The very first one. Forget the preview. Soccer Chat episode 1 right now. I'm excited. Nick, are you excited?
I'm incredibly excited. We had a very fun conversation earlier tonight.
And what the best part is, we're trying to tie this into our soccer chat on Wednesday nights. Oh my gosh, I didn't even say the freaking sponsor. God, I'm an idiot. 3, 2, 1. Hello, everyone. Welcome once again to #SoccerChat, the podcast brought to you by Cool Athletes. You can find them on Twitter at HS social media. Check them out. They put up very good tweets and post and links for parents, for athletes, all about how the social media is changing culture and how it's helping and hurting kids. So you definitely want to make sure and check them out. Big show today. I know it's episode number 1, but there's been no bigger show for Soccer Chat than this one. And my name is Sean Soderling, and I'm here once again with Nick Rizzo. Nick, it's the first episode. Are you jacked up? Are you ready to go?
I'm incredibly excited. I mean, I don't know if my voice does a great enough job of saying how excited I am, but no, we had a super fun conversation earlier tonight, and I'm just it's still reeling off that a little bit. It's been a fun night so far.
And we want to tie in the show with our we're part of on Wednesday nights. All you got to do is follow the #SoccerChat. If you want to, you can follow at Chat Soccer. That's ChatSoccr. There's no E in soccer. And we're tying in our theme this week is curating your program's culture. That's something that we talked about tonight. And we're going to interview, Scott Phipps from Alderson Broaddus University, someone who I felt like as soon as we knew this topic would be somebody that would be great to speak with on that topic. But man, tonight the soccer chat was happening tonight. This was a program, or this was a topic that I think a lot of people were interested in. As head coaches, we've all been there, taking over a team for the first time, making that transition with the players from the old coach to the new coach. And it was great to hear everybody's answers tonight on various questions. Just kind of what was your kind of review of the evening's chat?
No, I think the biggest thing that I really got out of it was the fact that a lot of people's ideas aren't really dissimilar. It didn't seem like someone had an idea today that was vastly different from anyone else's. And I think that is a good thing for us as a country that are trying to develop all these players in a way that fits a system that is ultimately going to make us better long term. But really, I think that it was fun to see how everyone found their own unique way to explain what they were trying to come across. Everyone had a little bit different way of wording it. And for me personally, it was fun to, before we get into the answers later, a lot of really new ways that I would go about wording things now that I've seen other people do it. And it was fun to kind of really see how they all did that.
Some pretty interesting questions tonight and a lot of interesting answers. And, make sure you're listening because you never know. We may read your tweet. We try to we try to save the best ones and ones that make us ask more questions, because essentially this is what it's all about is connecting coaches and networking and really just bouncing ideas off of each other as we tend to do from time to time. First question was, and has been or as the most difficult challenge when taking over a new team. And I really liked a lot of the answers in this. And kind of like you said, like everybody almost said the same thing, but just using different vocabulary. But kind of the same point was being made across. But kind of the big theme, I think, for everybody's answers, and I'm sure you would agree with this, is a lot of getting rid of the idea of what had happened before with the program.
Yeah, no, I think you beat me by about 45 seconds to that answer, which totally sucked. But no, I think
when you're good, you're good.
it really was disappointing to find
It
that
was
time
almost like I had it saved in the drafts. I guess
stamp.
we'll never know.
We won't. But I mean, if, I don't know. But anyway, so no, it was fun to with that for me. I think the biggest thing that to answer that question on a personal level, when you're going into a new program, there's so many people that want to talk about last year. Even when you're at a program for a while, everyone always wants to talk about, oh, we did things this way last year. And when I was a player, it happened to us. When I was a sophomore, we had the most successful year that we ever had in my 4 years there. And even junior and senior year, people were still talking about that year. And it was such a task for our coach to get us to not talk about that year and how it was, because with a sport like soccer, where so many different things can happen, we could have lost a million games that year that we won, and we could have, I mean, in years after that, we could have won a million games that we lost. But it's hard to get the mindset to constantly be focused on the present, and especially with a new program, I think that when you get there, getting that idea out there where that was a different team. I'm a new coach, and I'm not necessarily better or worse, but I'm going to be different. And we're going to do different things. And to even try to compare them to things that you've done in the past is just a futile thing, because you're not going to it's not the same sample size. You're comparing two things that are apples and oranges, because you've inserted something that's completely new, and you're trying to do things that are completely new, and the past really didn't affect that up to that point.
And another thing that you can add in not so much the past, but the future as well is I don't know how many listeners we have that are club coaches for high school age kids, and especially those of us who coach club where we have multiple high schools represented on the team. But the big thing that I got this year with my group, the first time having them this year, was we'd be doing stuff in training, and instead of, well, this is year, a lot of stuff that I got was, well, at blank high school, this is what we do. And it's one of those things where I just had to be like, hey, no disrespect to your high school coach or your high school, but I don't care what you did there. This is my session. This is the philosophy that we have as a club and as a team that we want to do. These are the sessions that we're going to do in order to get to that point. So it's the of, if it's not broke, don't fix it. And I think that's a problem that we have, not just within the kids, but I would go so much far as to say coaches as well, because a lot of us, just kind of like teachers, I know teachers who are using the exact same lesson plans that this year that they have for the last 35 years that they've been teaching. And you have to be able to adapt, you have to be able to evolve, and you have to make things new. And even if in a way of what's old is new again. But I think the idea of the mentality to change of, okay, like you said, I may not be better than the previous coach, or maybe I'm better than the last coach, but these are my ideas, these are my philosophies, this is how we're going to do things. And most people who kind of have that same answer, as in, we had at Chiso Crid. I know I'm not saying that right. CHISOKRI or KRKID 77. JJ is a coach with Palestine Celtic Soccer Club in Chicago. He said, setting up a new team or club culture, breaking down the old, and igniting a new vision and dynamic for all the players. And I absolutely love that. I'm all about the buy-in, and I'm sure that we'll talk about that later on. Is you've got to make every single person buy in, because all it takes is one person, and that maybe it's one player, maybe it's one parent. All it takes is one person not to buy into what you're doing, and it ruins everything.
Oh yeah, and it's funny because there's that I don't remember the coach's name, but he was a coach at Michigan for a while, and he talks about, like, and we're going to talk about recruiting at some point, but if you recruit a kid and you don't get him, he may only beat you once or twice a year. But if you recruit the wrong kid to your program, he's going to beat you every day for that whole year and possibly 4 years. And to your point exactly, it's very, very difficult when you have that one person that is just toxic to the team and is really pulling people in a different direction.
Yeah, and it seems that, like we said, just a lot of people all had the same idea. Donald Tees, at Donald Tees, that's TEES, who I know you were a big fan of a lot of his stuff this evening, made the comment about promoting positivity when a program has been negatively led or hasn't been nurtured, biggest problem in the college area. And that's something that, I think we all see that. And we're going to get a lot of detail about that coming up with Scott Phipps. But I think it's even so much more than the college. I've been a guy in my experience, when it comes to coaching and picking, like applying for jobs and taking over new teams, I don't want they just won a state championship the year before. For whatever reason, I feel like somebody made a joke one time, called me the Chip Gaines of coaching soccer. I'm a fixer-upper. I want to find the programs that are having issues and they need some type of foundation needs to be rebuilt and brought back up in a positive manner. Those are the teams that intrigues me. And I think that the point that he made, I know a lot of people liked it and had commented on it, was so big because that can change everything. That can change everything because you take a team that's been negative for so long, and if they buy into that little bit of positivity, man, I don't know too many people that haven't seen some type of big turnaround from doing that.
No, I mean, yeah, it's definitely one of those things where going in and getting your stuff out there right away, and we'll talk with Coach Phipps later about how to go about doing that, but getting your stuff out there right away and really making it known what you're trying to do and the route that you're trying to go with the team is such a crucial element because they have to know what direction you're taking them in. You're the driver at this point. What direction are you going to be taking them in? How far are you going to go with them? And getting that message across quickly and efficiently and clearly is one of the most important things that you can do immediately when you're trying to change the culture of the team.
Question of the night came, is there more difficulty changing the mentality of the players based off age and other factors? Maybe it's the town that they're, maybe it's a smaller town compared to a bigger city, previous success of the coaches, and a lot of different answers on this one. I think a lot of people, just from their own experiences, had various topics. What were some that kind of caught your eye?
I mean, the one that always gets me, I was actually talking with a local coach about this the other day, was the different factors that do affect to the question exactly, the mentality of players, other factors. I think geography is such a unique thing because when I was talking with someone the other day, Monmouth is obviously in a very small town, and someone made the question or asked me the question is, do you think you can make a successful soccer program in an area where soccer is not very renowned? I mean, you have to go pretty much 45 minutes to an hour to get a club team. You have to, I mean, the high school teams are good in those areas, but locally they're much smaller and don't have as much as much talent, for lack of a better phrase. And I think that it's one of those things where I think you can be successful anywhere. And I know that's different than probably some people, but I think you just have to find the way that you can go about doing it. And I think that there are certain things that you can do to make the culture better. I've seen one of my friends took over a program a few years ago in a very small town a very small school in Champaign, Illinois, and has really built it to a team that wins regionals every year, gets a state almost every year. And he just went in and started doing things with it. He made sure they had summer stuff to work on. He made sure that he was constantly engaging them in social media. He was really promoting them and doing things that you and me had talked about in the past that really can differentiate a program and make people excited about it. And I think that process of getting people excited about it is one of the most important things when you are struggling with with changing mentality, and you have to overcome things like a small town or poor success previously and really try to change it from there.
Yeah, this experience that I had in that was a high school that I took over. Had some success for a little bit before I got there, and then kind of dumped off at the end. And it kind of became the thought was that there was only one really good player on the team, and one of the things was kind of that was the mentality that everyone had. It was, well, there's just the one superstar, and that's all the team has. And we were able to make it the entire team was superstars. And that was a small town, and people got behind it. Kind of a theme that we heard tonight was success creates environment, creates talk, and that environment was able to change, and that mentality that the players had was able to change once they saw that there were 11 players on the field that were scoring goals. There were 11 players on the field that were keeping the ball from going in. And there was 11 players on the field that were creating the success together instead of just one person. And they all worked so well together. Things I made the comment tonight in the soccer chat about it's harder to work with a team if they believe in the whole, if it's not broke, don't fix it mentality. And I kind of had that with this group of, well, we had won our sectional for the last 5 years. But the problem was they never really looked at who they were playing in sectionals. They just kind of took it as, we can do whatever we want in regular season, but we're fine in sectionals because of who we play. So being able to change that and say, hey, we should win that sectional every year, but we should also be beating these teams that we would see in regional when we get there. And instead of winning in sectionals and then going to regionals and getting pounded, we need to flip that around to where we're playing those teams from regionals in the regular season, getting used to that style of play and playing at that level. So when we make it to regionals after winning sectionals, getting blown out, we're right there to where either we're going to, just barely lose or we're going to beat these teams somehow, some way. And it seemed that most people had the idea that it's all about the energy that you put in. I know Coach Derek at MSC07B made the comment that it kind of hit home with me too about players. They want to know that the coach has their best interest at heart. You got to show that you care. Change is not as rough as it may seem. And I think that that's actually a point that's kind of not really talked about much, is one connection with the players to where they do know that you care. And I know, that the high school team that I had, my first day, I poured it all out to them. Like, I wanted them to know everything about me. I want to know every single thing about them. And I wanted them to know that they're going to be put in a position to succeed. I'm never going to put a player on a role on the field in a position to fail, because that's just going to make things worse for them. We're going to take what you're good at, find the role for it on the field, and we're going to put it to use as much as we can. So with that explanation of, they've got to see that you have the best interest at their hand, in your experiences, is that something that you do? I know you just took over your team a couple of years ago. What was kind of that first meeting where they finally get to know who you are and your ideas that you have for them? How did you see any change with the players, like, very quickly in that, or was it something that it kind of took some time to build upon?
No, I think that's what you talked about. I think is the most important element with, and what other people had talked about with showing them that you care. I've always been under the impression where I don't mind if players know about me. I have nothing to hide. I'm not a person that's really trying to keep my life in as a secret, just because I think that if a player can have empathy for you, they're going to work harder for you. If they realize that not only are you a soccer coach, but you're a real person, they're going to be more inclined to care for you as well and understand that you're a part of their family. You're not this dictator who's working over their family. You're a person that is involved with it. And so for me, one of the best pieces of advice I had gotten growing up is it's sometimes better to have 100 1-minute conversations than one 100-minute conversation. And being there to constantly engage people, have them stop by the office, and we'll hear a few ways later. But I think like doing simple things like I have gum all the time. So I'll have girls that will literally come in and just have a conversation, grab a piece of gum and walk out. But just that constant interaction to get them to trust you more, and having really, it's definitely a process. I can tell you that when I took over the team in the spring, there was a lot of girls that were hesitant to talk to me about anything other than soccer. And by the end of this fall, I have girls coming in talking about class, talking about other things. And it's not something that I think can happen overnight. Trust is something that is constantly being built, and one small thing can pull it away. But I think having them doing little things to make them realize that you're a person that they can trust, and that you're a person that does care about them, is something that is just built over time. And it's going to hopefully be better, obviously, this coming season, and be better the next season, because you're constantly building those relationships and building those trust with your team. And it's an ongoing thing that I don't think can necessarily be forced or rushed or done in a very specific one big meeting at the beginning of the year.
I think too that you have to, with that one-on-one connection, just from my experiences. You have to have that same conversation with the number one person on your roster as you do as the very last person on the roster. You
Yes.
have to have that same amount of time with them because, those players who have been on the end of the roster, one complaint that you hear is, oh, coach doesn't care about me. It just, it is what it is. And I think they have to know because at any moment in time that they're called upon, it's like coach is really trusting me to go out here and do something. And that's something that, especially like with high school players and college players as well, I in my experience, I try to get to know everybody. I'm like you. I'm an open book. Like I have nothing to hide. I'll tell you. I like to think that I'm a likable guy.
I like
I'm thank you, thank you. I'm one of those people that super outgoing, super social. When I was a real little kid, I used to get in trouble in school because I just talk so much. I would just get up in the middle of class and walk over and start having a conversation with somebody. But I want people to know that, or I want my players to know that I truly everything about them. I want to be a part of that. Like I want to classes and I don't know so much because I've been away from the girls side of the game for so long, and I can imagine that there probably are differences about getting to know players from the men's side to the women's side. um I wanted the guy on the bottom of the roster. I wanted him to know, not feel. I wanted him to know that he was just as important to me as the guy who's scoring all the goals or the guy who's making every save. When it's his time that, I trust him, and that's a big thing for me is trust. Like I've always told people from the beginning, like if I put you at defense because I trust you, not I'm putting you there because I trust you. But so many guys have reached out to me, and not even so much guys because I started off coaching girls. So many players have reached out to me. You're my favorite coach because you were more than just a coach. Like we could have a conversation with you, like you talked about, like something other than soccer. And I think that the more players nowadays, just because this generation is a lot different than when you played, it's a lot different than when I played, that they have to have some type of, there's got to be something that you're into or that you like, whether it's music or TV shows. I know that Netflix brings everybody together. Type of interaction there that really helps them with their connection with you. And for me, I think it's music. I'm not much of a TV guy. You're more of a movie guy. There's got to be some type of common ground that they can see that, yes, you're their coach. And I know some coaches disagree with this, but I think that the players have to see that you're a human being too.
No, 100%. I think, and again, everyone has their own idea with that, but I look at coaches at the top levels, and you go to typically, like, and you see it a lot when you see people's Hall of Fame speeches. How often is it their coach that's the one that's introducing them? That it was more, and obviously that's because they had a specific tie to that sport. But when, like, I mean, I know a ton of people are very against Calipari, but if you've seen that recent 30 for 30, when he's at the draft with those guys that are the one and dones that people are kind of against right now, they are giving him hugs. He's one of the first people they thank. And when they're interviewed about him, they absolutely love him. So love him or hate him from an outside perspective, his players care for him. And so I think that having your players have that ability to care for you comes from that. I don't think that they're just going to innately do that if you just show up to the field, do your drills, leave, and then you see them a day later, you do the exact same thing. The fact that you need to engage yourself with them more regularly and have small conversations with them about anything is going to be the thing that differentiates you as a coach to them.
Yeah, and I mean, you bring up Calipari. I think it's across everything. I would say, at the soccer level, and I never know what the actual in being thing, but I think the connection that we saw the national team with Coach Pia, especially at the beginning. And again, I don't know the inner workings. I know that Pia was offered the Sweden job and she couldn't. Is Sweden or Australia?
It was Sweden.
Yeah, Sweden job, and that's her home country. You can't say no to that.
Yeah.
Even if you are the coach of the number one team in the world, you can't say no to go back home. And that she had with her players was out of this world. Like you talk about, like if you watch a lot of the old soccer games and when guys score goals, what was the celebration? They ran over to the sideline and hugged the coach.
Mm-hmm.
There wasn't like a showing off to the crowd. There wasn't, doing some type of dance move. They would sprint as hard as they could over to the coach to give the coach the hug. And there are still some coaches currently that, you and I go on about Antonio Conte a lot. But man, as with those players, that here are guys who are getting paid millions and millions of dollars and hundreds and thousands of dollars a week. And the first thing that they do as soon as they score, when they do something amazing, is they go to him and celebrate with him. And that's so incredible to see even at that level. Because I know anybody who knows me games knows that when my team scores, I'm celebrating just like I scored it. Like I've been this way since I was a player. I was celebrated in college when I scored. I celebrated in high school when I scored. I just can't help myself. I get the emotions and the love, just like, and so much to, like being with a new club, it's kind of like the big talk. Everybody's like, oh, you can tell when Sean's coaching because if his team scores, we're going to hear it. It took them a while to kind of get used to it, but all of a sudden when they would score, they would come over to me because they knew that I was excited, and we really kind of, but I think that that's something that's kind of missing from things now. Like I said, with I don't know if I've ever seen a team as well connected as Pia and the U.S. women's team, because they were on fire when they were playing, and they were destroying everybody. And just my favorite thing I've always known of that group was Pia's very first training session with them. Before even introducing herself or getting the session started, she broke out her guitar. And if you know anything about Coach Pia, she's a former recording artist, and she played the song "Times Are A-Changin'." And a lot of the women, I'm a huge, huge, huge Megan Rapinoe fan. Multiple others said that was the moment that they knew this was going to be awesome. It wasn't the session was great because it was, but it was the fact that here is somebody who broke down a barrier. Here's this famous coach and this famous former pro player, which some people consider one of the best women's player of all time, pulled the coaching personality aside, breaks out a guitar and has American Idol right there in front of the team. And I can't even I can talk in front of a microphone, but I can't imagine being in front of just like and decide, hey, I'm going to play you a song. By the way, I'm a soccer coach, but I'm going to play you a song. And that, I don't know, like stuff like that motivates me. And I wish that there was more of that with, you do see it in the college game a little bit, but not as much, because I feel like a lot of coaches nowadays are too, I don't know, like non-emotional, not non-emotional, but just kind of like go about their business. I understand the whole phrase of, act like you've been there before, but man, what kind of chemistry can you create if the players as you are when you've succeeded?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think that I've never, I'm a huge Liverpool fan, so obviously we're going to have to talk about that at some point, but,
Christmas.
But I think that like a guy like Jurgen Klopp too, when you see it and you see how excited, like how is that a bad thing? Obviously he's coached at a very high level, won championships, and goals are still, I tell our team about this all the time. Like when you don't get excited when you score a goal, like it doesn't make sense to me, because it's the one time during the game where you actually get a break. You get to go celebrate and hug your friends, because other than that, you may be 70, 80 yards away from them for a very, very long time. Hopefully not that far, but you're going to be away from them, not getting a chance to really talk to them or do anything with them. And that's your one moment to be like, yes, we're together again. Like we may have been 20 yards away from each other. We get to come in and have a hug and celebrate and laugh and really just enjoy this moment. And I think that you're right. I think enthusiasm with anything is, how can it be a bad thing?
And I know too, just in experience, and I hate that I say that, but I guess this is what this kind of is about, of, you and I talking about our experiences. Man, it's contagious. Success, but just positive energy is so contagious. And I think that that's something that as I don't know if as a society, as a culture, as a sport, we've gotten away from. Man, I mean, like you said, like that's you should be happy that you scored. Now, I don't like my players showboating or doing stuff like the shining of the boots and things like that. One of the rules that I used to make with my high school teams was when you scored a goal, your celebration was you found the guy or girl who passed you the ball, you shook their hand, said thank you, and if you want to give them a hug, you give them a hug. And it turned into with my Vincent Lincoln high school team that it turned into you hug everyone. We have a big group hug. And somehow they turn it into it's a group hug, and we also include the guys on the bench, and we include the coaches, and we just like have this 30-man huge power group hug. And I think that that's contagious, and people see that and they feed off of that. And we're talking about, this is what's worked for us. The next question was, what has worked for you in the process of making players from the previous coach to you? And I think for me, that it's that enthusiasm, that positive energy that, anytime that you're around me and we're talking soccer, you can see the passion there. Buy into that because I view it as I can have this curriculum, I can have this philosophy of what I want the team to do. You have to see that I truly believe in what I'm trying to preach. Not I won't say preach, but what to do. You have to see how much I believe in that. Because if you see how much I believe in that and it clicks in your head like, hey, this guy's right, but man, he's really into this. And if he's really into it, then I'm into it too. I think that's the big, for me, that's always been my strongest point in easing kids into that transition, is just seeing the positive energy and the enthusiasm in that we're all on the same page. There's nothing that we can't do.
Yeah. No, I think you kind of mentioned earlier that Donald Tease, I liked a lot of his answers tonight. And so at Donald Tease, for that answer, he said A3 was being genuine, showing your true personality, outlining the program we have, keeping communication, actually caring, not lying. And I think that being genuine is easily the most important thing that you can do as a new coach coming into a new program. Be who you are. And we'll talk later with Scott about the fact that being exactly who you are is one of the most important things that you can do. You can always take ideas from someone else, but being true to what you are as a person, what you're trying to present, and he even talked about your guys' coaching staff as a whole. It's just such an essential part, because your players are going to see it if you fake it. If you start faking stuff and you start trying to be someone you're not, you start trying to do things that you can't, your players, they're not dumb. I mean, in the same way that as coaches, we're not dumb. When our players are trying to do things that we know aren't them, we'll see it. We see each other enough that it's just, you're going to be able to be read in those situations. And I think that his answer to be genuine and show your true personality, kind of like you talked about earlier, you're an enthusiastic person. You're a person that likes to laugh, likes to smile, likes to celebrate. If you suddenly started being stoic, if you suddenly started standing on the sideline, your players would probably react negatively to that. Like, why is coach pissed off? Why is he not talking to us in the way that he normally talks to us? Why is he being distant? And as much as those little things affect games, they affect games in really big ways. And through the course of a season, that could be something that takes your team from, in a college game, an 18-win season. Like if you could go anywhere from being a few games above 500 to a lot of games below 500 very quickly if your players they don't believe that you're being true to yourself and you're communicating the message in the best way possible.
And Gavin Richmond at Gav the Gordy said, I think, and this is almost opposite of what we were just saying, but it does work a lot of times, is early successes that the coach has can help you define the success with your philosophy. And I've seen that too, where an incoming coach has huge credentials and like there's the instant to what the coach is doing just because of what they've done previously. The next question, we're actually going to save that because I know we're going to get into a lot of that with Scott Phipps, and it's explain your process of developing your vision for your program and your team. And that's something too that even Nick made the comment. He needs 1,000 words and a citation page for this one. So if you could, Nick, real quick, kind of give us your short answer on that.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think with those, when you're trying to develop your specific plan of action, I think it's one of those things that it doesn't really like. It's one of those things where your vision it has to be simple and concise, but it has to have a lot of layers to it. But you can't unroll all those layers all at once. And so for us, with my specific vision for the team, I think that one of the things that is overstressed with programs, and not in a bad way, I think having competition and being competitive with everything was my main vision for what I wanted to do with my team here. I wanted to take it from where it was, and the program was very successful. I mean, it was in the conference championship in 2013, and it kind of gotten away from that, where we weren't necessarily holding ourselves accountable for 12 months a year. We were holding ourselves accountable for about those 3 that we were in season. And outside of that, we really weren't doing that anymore. And so both a combination of bringing people in that want to do it and really developing the players that we have internally to understand that that's the only way that they're going to get the most out of their college experience. I mean, when you go to a place, you're never picking a place because you want to lose soccer games or want to lose any sport, wherever you choose. And so you have to figure out the best way that you can go about maximizing your college experience. For us, and I don't know if it's different for you guys at the Division II level, you get 18 guaranteed games a season. So you get 64 college soccer games. How are you going to maximize those 64 games? And for us, the first thing that we had to go about doing was being more competitive on a daily basis and really getting after each other. And it was fun to see this year, the end of the year, with a lot of our freshmen getting a little bit more comfortable, where they're starting to drills that were typically very relaxed. Near the end of the year, our girls were going at it, and really just, you could tell it was a lot different. And it's one of those things I'm excited going into next year. But I think with that, I mean, and sorry, I'm getting a little bit off track with the answer, but I think that developing your vision is one of those things that I think you have to find a way to go about doing it every single day. You have to have a theme, and then you have to find ways to make that theme consistent, not only from the first day you open up in preseason, but all the way through to the next year when you open up in preseason.
And I know that you became a big fan of Donald T's as of tonight, and I know that you really liked his answer for this question.
Yeah, no, for sure. He used a great anagram. What's that? Why
acronym?
Acronym. Thank you. I don't know why I said anagram. And
I have no clue how I even knew what that was.
I appreciate it, though. It makes me sound.
People are going to learn real quick. People are going to learn real quick. You can tell that I married up because I've got the wife that's got the master's degree in English major and working on her PhD. I probably heard him say that, and that's how I was able to figure that out.
I mean, we were discussing words earlier today that we learned the word curating tonight too, so that was good too. But
thank you, Casey, for teaching me the word curating. Also, be like, this dude is dumb.
Yeah, no, it's
he knows a lot about soccer.
I mean, our vocabulary doesn't have to be fantastic. We just have to be able to talk for about an hour every week. But no, he used the acronym PURPOSE, and it filled out passion, unity, responsibility, positivity, opportunity, sportsmanship, and excellence in academics. And I think that that's awesome because you clearly, I'm sure their players look at it and they know exactly what each one of those words mean. And I think that to have something like that is incredibly important, because whatever your vision, your idea that you want your team to really follow through with, they have to understand it. And there's Anson Dorrance, everyone quotes him, so I always feel bad bringing him up because I'm not unique in knowing that Anson Dorrance was a soccer coach. But with their competitive culture, and one of the coolest things that I saw in a talk that he did was he ties a specific quote to every element of their competitive cauldron. And one of the quotes he took was awesome. I wish I had it in front of me right now, but it's essentially about, they have a rule called no whining, and they took a quote, and it is a very complex quote that all their players had to memorize, but every single one of them was able to memorize it because they knew that it's specifically tied to the idea of not whining. And so having your team really buy into and understand and having something tangible like that, that's why I love that. I hope he uses that with his team, that the acronym with purpose, because I think that when their team looks at that, I hope that that's a driving factor for them, and it should be a driving factor. And every team really should have something like that that's tangible, that their players can see on a daily basis, that really is the driving force for them going forward on a day-to-day basis within their season and even in the offseason.
It's something as simple as an acronym that can set the tone for your culture. And I know that we'll speak on that with Coach Phipps here coming up. Any kind of last things before we get into this amazing interview?
Oh, I mean, I think the a lot of things that come with this interview is just going to be he took a lot of the things that we talked about tonight and just added so much to them in terms of, and we didn't ask him every question that we asked on here, but a lot of the things that he did with the ways he was able to elaborate on a lot of the answers that we were going with is just going to be, I learned so much tonight just talking from him.
Awesome. Well, we've got that coming up, so make sure to stay tuned. We have our very first guest here on #SoccerChat. We want to thank you for listening. Again, got an awesome interview, like we said, with Scott Phipps from Alderson Broaddus University, a Division II school in the the GMAC conference, just the conference champions this past season. I think you're going to learn a lot from him. I think you're going to see why I feel like he's one of the big up and coming coaches, one to keep your name out on. You can follow him on Twitter at Coach Phipps, PHIPPS 17. He's learning it. He's getting better at it. And I know that he wants to use it as a platform to connect with other coaches as well, which is what this is all about. #SoccerChat, the podcast, brought to you by high school athletes. For social media for the high school athletes. Man, I'm all backwards again on that. You can find them on Twitter at HS Social Media. We talked about that before, but now it's the interview of the week. Now I got a guy that comes on here and goes, and now for the interview of the week.
The intro on the first one was awesome. I was like, this sounds way better than just you and me starting to talk.
Well, the same guy did a couple others for me, and he was like, anytime you need something, he's like, just come up with it. He's like, send it to me. I can send it back to you real quick.
That's awesome.
So I'm sure we'll come up with like more segments and we can add them in. All right. So that was about 40. Scott's thing was
32, you said.
32. So that's 60. On this, we'll just kind of review kind of Scott stuff and then plug into next week since we kind of went long on that. And we'll just kind of keep it real short. And
yeah, I mean, and honestly, with any of that stuff, feel free to cut it down if you ever want to do more than this, because I feel like the way we talk, like I was looking at where I kind of looked at my clock and we were 22 minutes in and we were on A2 because you and me just keep talking. And so if there's anything you want to cut off, go for it.
Okay, I can do that. All right, then we'll try to go just a little bit on this. I would say since we haven't contacted Sam, I don't want to say that we say who are.
Yeah.
I guess it's next week, but we could definitely mention what our topic is going to be. And then just kind of, if you want to hit home some points from the interview with Scott, and then we'll keep it quick and go from there.
Yep.
All right. Hopefully you enjoyed this week's interview with Scott Phipps from Alderson Broaddus University, the head coach of the men's soccer team. Again, you can find him on Twitter at Coach Phipps 17. You can find his program at ABMSoc and check out their website, gobattlers.com. You can also find Coach Nick on Twitter at Coach N Rizzo on Twitter, and myself as Coach Soderling. And as well as kind of this whole soccer chat thing, at Chat Soccer. There's no E in soccer. It's just chat and SOCCR. What a great conversation. And like I said, kind of at the beginning of it, kind of really the first time Scott and Nick have met, other than Nick playing against Scott. But again, this is what it's all about: is connecting coaches that have never really conversated before and just bouncing ideas back and forth and philosophies. And it was awesome to see the interaction of you two, just from like the things that you were saying. I mean, both of you were really picking up on the ideas that each other had.
No, absolutely. And he's such like, it's funny every time I have a conversation with a coach, I come out of it thinking like, man, I still have so much to learn. And he is definitely an example
Except
of that.
when you talk to me. Except when you talk to me. Let's be honest.
We're both idiots, and we bring each other down to each other's level. Yeah. But no, I think with him, it was so fun to like just kind of walk through his experience of taking over a program and really seeing where some parts that you can look to do right away. And I think the anecdotal evidence that he gave is awesome, because I think that especially with coaching, there's so many times where anecdotal evidence isn't the best thing in the world. But with coaching, seeing other people's experiences and getting specific examples of how they went about doing different things and their specific philosophy is awesome. Because again, you can't steal an entire coach's philosophy, but there are parts of a coach's philosophy that you can take. And I think some of the things that I really took out of him was, one of my favorite things was right away when he talked about, and you could probably elaborate on this a little bit because you're a part of the program, is the fact that he has expectations and not rules. And I think the part that he elaborated on a little bit was that players can break rules, and obviously there's set consequences, but when you're not meeting expectations, that's when things start to go downhill as a program. When you constantly are setting expectations and they're not being met, and people aren't holding up to their end of the bargain, that's when the program isn't going to start moving in a forward direction. And I think you can always move forward, you can always move back. It's very little time that's spent at the exact same spot that you're at. Soccer is a zero-sum game for the most part. Someone's always going to be getting better than you or getting worse than you. And I think the fact that he ties in that expectation part was just a really good thing for me to take away from it. What do you have to add to that at all?
When we first kind of got together, and that was one of the things that he mentioned, at first I was like, what? No rules? Like, and because I didn't even think about it the way that he elaborated. I just heard like, we don't have rules, we have expectations. And if for whatever reason, my little peanut brain did not even process. I was like, but we don't want guys like just out here wilding out, like just being crazy. Like, we need to be able to keep them in control. And kind of like he did with us, he elaborated on this idea of expectations. And it made such sense, because at the same time, I think a lot of us in the college game do kind of struggle with forgetting that, yes, they're kind of kids when we get them, but at the same time, like, they're becoming men or women at the same time. And you have to give them that expectation level. But the thing that I like what it turned into really being the idea is this idea of personal accountability and accountability for each other as a team. And so now you have those guys who were there before who had been a part of the previous regime, who bought into it, and they were the ones who were starting to hold the other guys accountable. And they were the ones who were trying to teach the younger guys on how to be. And it just created this atmosphere that, like he said, it truly is a family group. They're all accountable for each other. They do everything together. They make sure that they're all close in proximity. I always laugh about when you're on campus, you're going to see 5 of them together, and you're going to look 25 yards behind them, and there's going to be 5 more. See one of them eating at lunch, you're going to see all of them eating at lunch. And it just creates this idea of, like he mentioned, rules are meant to be broken. I mean, that's kind of that's bad guys in movies. But just this idea of like, hey, here's what coach is expecting of us. And he's, like he said, he's a straight shooter. If you don't meet those expectations, you're going to know about it. And it's gotten to the point to where before he can get to you, when those expectations aren't met, you first. And I think that's what's really helped that group, is that of expectation levels, not just for themselves as individuals, but for themselves as a team.
Yeah. No, and I mean, and I'm sure every good program you've seen and been a part of, your coach again is going to be with you for a small part of your day. Even if you have a full off season at the Division 1 or Division 2 level, there is a small part of the day that the coach is going to be able to meet with you. There's a large part of the day that you're going to have a lot of time to make good or bad decisions, to make sure that you're becoming a better player or becoming a worse player. And I think that when you have groups like you talked about, when you have people that hunt in packs together, that's why when I always see, I always joke with our girls for the same thing. Like if you see one, you see five, because they hunt in packs. And I think that when you have groups that are doing that, not only in the 3 months that you have a season, but in the other 9 months, those are the teams that are long-term successful. You've never seen a team that doesn't truly care about each other being successful long-term. And it's funny because I've seen so many answers to this where people will say that great teams don't have to like each other. I want them to point out teams that have been long-term successful where their top players weren't people that hung out with each other off the field. I just don't know of any offhand. And I think that having that ability, that trust to hold each other accountable, because again, having that empathy for another person, to care about them enough to say, hey, you screwed up and we need to get better here. You can't do that if that's a person that you don't trust, respect, and empathize with.
Everybody knows that I'm a big Duke University basketball guy. And if you ever get the chance to see the Christian Leitner 30 for 30, or there was a Grant Hill produced little documentary, I think it was on NBA TV. Christian Leitner and Bobby Hurley did not like each other. And I think if you see the interviews, it was more Christian was just ribbing Bobby because he was a freshman and just kind of Christian tried to toughen Bobby up. And Bobby would make the comment like, I hated Christian. Like I played with him. We had to, we were a team. He's like, but man, that guy pushed me to my limits. And that's what caused me to hate. So I think maybe that's it. Maybe hate's a strong word or not like kind of going opposite of what you were saying, but I think you do have those times where there is that old guard that kind of pushes, especially nowadays, because kids are so different. You're going to have that group of kids who are really tough, blue collar, hard workers, and you have that group of kids come in who by with just getting by, and you have them kind of pushing them a little bit, but at the same time, maybe that success that they have makes that bond get a little bit tighter.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I do think that, I mean,
but for anybody who has examples of stars who hated each other, at Coach N Rizzo on Twitter, don't send those to me. Send those to Nick. He's the one that's asking, so blow him up.
I'm totally retweeting them to you every single time. So if my Twitter's getting blown up, yours is getting blown up. But no, yeah, I think
bring it on.
I think that but to get back to what he was talking about, I think having those expectations from the coaching staff down and then the players really buying into it and holding each other accountable that's where your program starts making strides. And that was one of the things that I really liked about him. One of the other things we talked about was how to what I really liked that I took away from is how to engage people and get them keep them excited, not only during preseason, but all the way to the next preseason. And he talked about the concept of building routines. And can you elaborate maybe a little bit more internally about what are some of the routines that you guys have established, if you have an idea of what those are?
Yeah, a lot of it is, he spent the first couple of weeks there with shit's done. And then once it got to a comfort level, the captains, then they're the ones who are kind of getting things set up. And I think that, gosh, it's one of those things where like I almost even hate answering because it's all kind of like his ideas, his philosophies, and his doings. So I always feel like I'm not gonna be able to put enough credit on it. But just, man, the fact that when it first started, him and the staff having to go out, put the cones down, get everything going, and even like just stuff as little as that, to where the players come in during the day, because they've got the session is up on the dry erase board in the office. They take a look at it, see what it is, and and most of the time they'll ask like, okay, like why are we doing this, or what's the purpose of this drill. Idea going into it to where when we get down to the field, I mean everything's set up already. And I've been around a lot of programs. I don't know how many coaches can say like that happens. Like before they get to the field, the players have it set up. And again, I don't know how much that really like answers your question. And again, like I talked so long that I think I almost forgot the question. But because I want to make sure that like I say this right way, because like I said, I kind of feel bad answering it for him.
No, that makes sense. I mean, he definitely elaborated on it earlier. But the other thing that I really like that, and again, this is something that is unique to your guys' program, to where he talks about. I love the phrasing of it, because I think semantics sometimes are incredibly important when he talks about your development squad. And I think the competition, and he talked about a story of a player who went from being on the development squad to captain of the development squad to playing in the conference semifinal and championship game. And I think that being transparent with those players and having those conversations of how you can get there and what, like, really, I mean, I think a lot of it is on the players to be internally motivated to get to that point. But I promise you, they're not going to work for a coach that they don't think is going to give them the chance. And I think that the things that you guys do with, and the things that he's really implemented with the development squad, with the competition, not only with that, but internally on the first team is important, because again, competition is going to expose a lot of people in a positive light or in a very negative light. And I think that having that as a constant thing that you're going after every single day is a crucial element to getting a program to go from being a 4-12 program like he started off with to a program that won the conference championship for, was it the first time?
Since they moved to the GMAC, yeah.
Yeah. And so, I mean, doing things like that, little small things where players are bought in, they realize, hey, I can work hard and I can get to this first team and I can have an impact and I can be in a conference championship game. That's something that's going to drive that lowest guy. And it's something that's going to gradually make the first team better, because they're not going to want to lose their spot to a guy that's coming from the development team. And if you're constantly pushing each other to get better, that's where it's going to really start making strides and with reaching the goals that he had talked about, with first goal winning a conference championship. And now he's talking about making the NCAA tournament and then making it past regionals and different things like that.
The development team, what I really like about those kids is they're not treated any differently than anybody else on the team. They're treated just the same way as the first team kids. They train the same way. Their expectations are the same. No one, and this is high school, it always was, oh man, I'm on JV. These guys, while they're okay with it, it's what motivates them. Like you were talking about, like knowing that there's that chance to get rewarded for their hard work down there. And the thing that, to Scott's credit and the staff that he's had there, that knowledge that, hey, I'm on this team to make my chances of going to that team better. And it's a fantastic thing for freshmen, I think, because freshmen do have a little bit of a struggle adapting to the college game, where if they're struggling at the beginning, they can slide back and play in those games and kind of get acclimated with the next level, and grow, and then they can go back in with the first squad. But it's a testament to them, and I maybe so much even more the boys themselves, that just because you're development team player of a player, and especially for a bunch of grown dudes, 18 to 21, 22, that's a testament to those players as well, that they can handle being with that team and knowing that on that and the training in that and the playing in that is going to help get them to that next level. And credit to all the schools that are doing that. I know, like you said, that as we've started it, more and more teams are starting to do it to where we're almost at the point that they had played just as many games as the first team does. And I think that that's something I hope grows, not just within our region, but just over, not even just in our division either. I hope that that's something that grows all over, just because of, if done the right way, so many awesome things and stories can happen out of it. Like he said, you never know which one of those kids is going to have an impact. If I do recall, if I remember correctly, because it's been some months since the conference tournament, the player that he spoke of, I want to say he scored in the semifinals. I want to say he scored in the semifinals, and like that was what really got us going. So it's one of those things where you never know. I know we kind of talked about this last week about you never know the type of impact. And I think that's kind of the thing with the development. If they're given that one chance to shine, they're going to make the most out of it. And fortunately for us, we've had a lot of guys who have come from that team up big for us.
Yeah, no, and I think it also is a testament to a lot of those people. I was actually talking to one of our basketball coach had a niece that had just broken into a first team up at a very good school in Wisconsin as a freshman and was on JV the entire year, but they made the state tournament and she had got pulled up to the varsity squad and scored the game-winning goal on the varsity squad. And I was talking to him, and I the first word that comes to mind, I was like, well, especially as a girl that young, a 14-year-old girl, being that gritty to not only stick it out through your season and to realize that if you keep grinding away, that chance could come. And when you take that chance, you have to take every bit of it. And I think that to his credit, I think that the fact that the players have bought into that they might get that chance. If they do all this, he'll give them the opportunity to do that. And you have stories that you can point to like that. That's going to make that team and the first team a team that really cares about each other, because then players aren't rooting against each other. They're rooting, like when that kid gets in a game, and I'm sure it was one of those situations where when he scored, everyone in there, from the first player to, I think you mentioned there's 45 players on the squad.
Yeah.
I'm sure every single player who had ever had a conversation with that kid was the most excited person that you could meet that day. And it's something that you talked about earlier. It is contagious. And I think that building a program that has those contagious philosophies is why some programs do better than others.
And I know that like this is really kind of a coach's show, but something that you just mentioned, I mean, I went from, playing a ton of minutes as a high school player to my freshman year, I could hardly get in a game. I could beg and beg and beg, and I wasn't going to get any time. And about midway through the season, minutes in the final 8 minutes in a game. And I remember stepping on the field, telling myself like, hey, this is my audition. This is my opportunity. Because if what I'm doing in training, if I'm not getting the playing time for how hard I'm working in training and the stuff that I'm doing, maybe this is my audition. This is where I've got to make something out of it. Into the next game, turn into 16 minutes. And those 16 minutes into the next game turn into a full half. That from a half into a half and another, or the whole first half and then maybe part of the second half. And then from there on, it turned into never coming out of the game. That's something I want to get across to, if any players are listening to this, is that when it comes, you have to seize it. Because by no means should I have ever been on a college soccer field whatsoever. No means. But the fact that when given that opportunity, that I try to make the most out of it, and scoring goals definitely helped in that. But like you said, I can remember being successful. Even the first time coming off the field, I was happy that I got out there because they saw what I was doing in training. They saw that I was one of the hardest working guys there. And for being undersized and underutilized, whatever you want to say, that really motivated me to get my opportunity to shine. And I think that long answer turns into something. I know I don't want to misquote Scott, but I know something that he says that he's never going to promise you playing time. He's never going to promise you or just hand anything to you. You know, everything's earned. But the thing that he wants you to earn is an opportunity. And I kind of call him a opportunity creator, because he's going to give you the opportunity. You never know when it's going to be, but he'll give you the opportunity at some point to prove yourself. And the guys who opportunity are the ones who are going to see the field. And every kid's different. Some kids can do it, some kids aren't able to. And as coaches, the more that we can see ourselves as an opportunity giver, it's going to make those kids at the bottom of the roster, those kids that are on the second team, the third team, make them work even harder.
Yeah. And that quote's awesome. I'm totally stealing that quote. But I think that the fact that teams and players can buy into that, the answers that we were talking about earlier, that they trust and they realize that that's something that is true to his personality. Like, you talk to him, when you say that he's an opportunity creator, that means that it's not only something that he says, it's something that happens on a day-to-day basis. I think that that's where it becomes something when the players realize that that's something that he's, as a part of him, it's ingrained in him as both a coach and a person. That's going to make them work that much harder to get that inch, so that they can maybe get a foot, so that they can maybe get a mile. And it's one of those things that it's just, I couldn't be, it's a quote that I really think that is true to him based off of what we talked about earlier.
And that's kind of our wrap up for this week. The first episode. Holy crap, we did it. We did it, my man. all the much hype from our previous show, and now we giving you the full show. Next week we're going to be we'll have another interview for you. And next week's topic is going to be coaching the modern day athlete. If you want to get involved, Soccer Chat, join us on Wednesday nights at 9:30 p.m. Eastern time. And for all you Central Time Zone folks, that is 8:30. And all you got to do is type in, go on your search, or I think it's Explore. It actually says if you're on your mobile app. So no excuse. Everyone has their phone on them. And most people do have smartphones nowadays. Make sure you have your Twitter open, hit Explore, type in hashtag, that's the # Soccer Chat, one word. And on Wednesday nights, you'll see all of us on there talking, and we're now trying to incorporate the topics from that into our podcast. And like we said, next week we're going to be talking about coaching the modern day athlete. I'm excited about it. It's actually I'm going to give credit to Nick. It's going to be his topic because he created it, and it's something I didn't even think about. And I'm really kind of excited to see what people's answers are and kind of what their ideas are about coaching the modern day athletes, because let's face it, the current group of athletes are completely different than all of us when we played. And you can join in on that Wednesday nights, like we said, at 9:30 p.m. Eastern time, or you can even follow Chat Soccer. That's Chat Soccer with no E, so just SOCCR. Again, you can follow Coach Phipps if you have any questions for him. I know, like we said, he's new to Twitter, so he will get back to you as quick as he can. It's at Coach Phipps 17. I'm Coach Sean Soderling. You can find me on Twitter at Coach Soderling. Rizzo, you can find him at Coach in Rizzo. Now, I'm kind of confused because I think the first week I called you Nicholas, and I think like midway through I started saying Nick. What do you prefer?
No one ever calls me by my first name, but I will totally. Nick is probably the more common thing that people call me by. So Nick is perfect.
What do you go by?
Everyone calls me Rizzo.
Oh, well, okay, that works. That's so weird. Like, okay, so like that's easy to say for people. For whatever reason, when I was a kid and we moved to the town that I ended up growing up in, everyone always called me Soderling. And I'm just like, just don't even try to butcher my last name. Just say my first name. But then it got to the point where nobody even referred to me as my first name, even like my family. And it just got to the point where I was like, all right, like I don't really care for my first name anymore. So it's always, for me, it's like, I know my wife kind of gets upset because she'll be like, Sean. And I'm just bitching. But enough about that. Next week's show, coaching the modern day athlete in soccer. We're going to have a great interview lined up for you. We're excited, and we've got even more interviews lined up along the way with a lot of great topics. Join us on the conversation. Hashtag SoccerChat on Wednesday nights at 9:30 p.m. Eastern time. Please, please, please subscribe to this on iTunes. A review for us. That way we know what we need to work on. We're still new at this. We're only one episode in. All right, we'll go 1.5 episodes in, and that's going to help us for everybody there. Please retweet the link for this and let your coaching friends know that they need to subscribe as well, as we're trying to build this audience, and we really like where we're heading with this, and we can't do it without the help of at social media for the high school athletes. We want to thank them for allowing us to do the show. Nick, you got anything as we head into next week?
No, appreciate all the people that have already given us responses. I think that it's been cool to see that it's already reached a few people, and I think that the more the time that we have, we were talking about some of the conversations we're going to have with coaches coming up. I'm just excited to keep learning from people and to keep having these conversations. I learn from someone new every single week on Wednesdays, and let's just keep this going.
That's what it's all about. Coaches networking, bouncing ideas off each other, and just talking shop. Make sure you let everybody know that hashtag SoccerChat is where it's at. Join us next time. Grab your drink, crack it open, listen to this, turn it up really loud if you want, because sometimes we're kind of quiet. But it's what it's all about. We're out here just trying to get better at ourselves as coaches, so that way we make it better for the kids that we coach, whether it's youth league, club, high school, college, or even the pros as well. There's not too many. There's kids in the pros too. But we're all just out here trying to make ourselves better. And we want to thank you for joining us. We'll see you guys again next week, guys and girls. We'll see you all next week as we have another soccer chat for you right here on your mobile device.